So between 1892 and 1895, Canada shifted residential school funding from a full funding model to a per capita system where they paid school a fixed grant for each child enrolled. So for example, at Battleford Industrial School, this change meant that only 80% of costs were covered by federal grants. Schools were expected to make up the deficit through student labor. Half of each child's day was spent on work projects, officially labeled vocational training. But in practice, these projects subsidized basic school operations. Many staff were volunteers or lived in poverty by religious vocation, but it was the children who suffered most, chronically underfunded, struggling with poor food, clothing, and medical care. In his 1907 report, Dr. Bryce, Chief Medical Officer for Indian Affairs, documented that the average death rate across the schools that he was reviewing was 24%. Bryce showed that these deaths were not just caused by diseases like tuberculosis and measles, but worsened by chronic underfunding, which led to overcrowding, unhealthy buildings, poor food, lack of proper nursing, and poor diets. This high mortality didn't affect the school's funding as long as new students replaced those who died or left. Schools didn't have to fix what was causing the deaths under this per capita funding model. They just had to maintain numbers. Indian Affairs files stated, "It is only necessary to carry out some common sense reforms to remove the accusation that the department is careless of the interests of these children." But few reforms were ever made. The department resisted Dr. Bryce's call for medical oversight and higher grants, deeming it too expensive and outside their education mandate. Frustrated after years of denial, Dr. Bryce published a national crime and appeal for justice to the Indians of Canada in 1922, and this is his summary. The story of this national crime is a simple one. The government knows what needs to be done, but has refused to do it. So in conclusion, the per capita funding model, meant to make residential schools self-supporting, created a system where headcount was everything. Lack of accountability for deaths, combined with chronic underfunding and resistance to reform, meant preventable deaths and tragic loss of lives. A reality confirmed by government records and the unmarked graves of the lost children. Bryce's conclusion 100 years ago was clear. The truth wasn't a secret, but a choice.